Welcome to the Say It Different podcast. My name is Tyler, and I'm joined every episode with my great friend, Justin Dailey. Our hope is to have real, authentic, and helpful conversations about the issues that we're all facing and talking about. Our perspective, it's going to say it different. Well, listen, I've been off of social media.
Yeah, you're off the grid.
Off the grid for a couple years now.
Yeah.
I don't really miss too much about it, but there are two things that I do miss from social media.
Okay.
It's a good, witty meme. I miss a good, witty meme.
Yeah.
And then I miss Dave Patnoy's pizza reviews.
I think it's Portnoy.
Portnoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Barstool Sports it's great pizza.
One bite,
great
everybody
pizza
knows the rules.
It's really funny because he says one bite, everybody knows the rules, and then he eats like half a pizza.
Yeah, no, that's half the fun. Yeah, but I miss those two things.
Yeah. And I love his interactions with a couple of the owners. If he ever gets yelled at or kicked off property,
he's not safe for the little ears.
He is,
if I remember correctly.
No, he is not Z88.3 approved.
No, but he is entertaining.
He is very entertaining,
and maybe a healthy outlet for Christians that have to hold those words in for a long time.
Just let him say them for you.
Just let him say them for you.
Yeah, that's a good call.
But
so is your advice just find a friend that cusses and they cuss for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad that that's not why I'm your friend or you're not my friend, but we have that friend. Yeah. Just don't spend too much time with them.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I bring all this up. Somebody recently, a friend of mine shared a meme with me that was great. It's a meme that says this. It says, Owen Wilson has made around $217,837,000 from his movies. He's doing all right.
Yeah.
He averages around 3,500 words per movie in 47 movies. This is where it's hilarious. That's about $1,300 per word. Wow was 102 of those words. Owen Wilson has made roughly $135,072 for saying, wow.
Yeah, and I can hear him saying it right now. Yeah.
That's hilarious. And the best part of this meme is really another thing that maybe I miss with some of these memes are some of the comments. The only comment in this screenshot that I got was, someone has way too much time on their hands and it ain't Owen. It's great.
The more creative the meme or the reel just shows you how little of life the person has. You know what I mean? Like you see a sports meme or you see somebody and you're like, how in the world did you have that much time?
I assume the math works out with that, but it's pretty crazy that the 135K per wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Little John's made about 13 million saying, yeah.
He's done okay for himself as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He made an appearance at the Super Bowl.
He did, yeah.
And that's where it all came back to me.
Yeah, I didn't know he was still alive.
Yeah, well, he's made a couple commercials too.
Yeah, has he?
I think he said the same line.
Yeah.
Still plays. Yeah. But hey, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about this idea. You actually recently at church talked a little bit about this in a message, this difference between criticizing and creating.
Yep.
And I think this to give a little bit of background, like from a biblical context, like biblically speaking, God is the only being that creates, and he's put that ability inside of us, which is the part of us that is like God, that we can give life and create life.
Yep.
Maybe is a better way of saying that, not give life, but we can create life and create things. We have creativity, ingenuity, those sort of things. That's what makes.
He'd be the source of creation. Nobody's ever created anything but him. But within the parameters of what we've been given, we can create new things.
Yeah.
With things that already exist because of him. Yeah.
So with that, like creating is a godly attribute.
Yeah.
Criticizing is what the enemy does.
Is the accuser. Yeah.
And the enemy can only criticize or counterfeit.
For sure.
Cannot create.
Right.
So you have this dichotomy between criticizing and creating that has spiritual ties there, spiritual roots there. So maybe unpack a little bit about this idea that you were kind of presenting to our church with criticizing and creating. Maybe spend a little bit of time summarizing that. I just feel like even
using the social media intro, like the world from sports shows to the debates to the dialogue, like it's just. We live in a world that is like people are making a living off of just tearing what other people are doing down.
Yeah.
And so what I talked about in the message was the idea that if you're obsessed with the things of God, with the calling of God, with creating within the parameters of what God has given you to do, then you won't have enough time to criticize other people because your day is full and you're fulfilled because you're actually busy doing what you're called to do instead of just spending your whole life tearing down what somebody else is doing.
Yeah.
You can be a builder or like a demolisher. And I feel like even in the Christian world, we have a whole group of people now that are just tearing down and criticizing what other people are doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, the comment section of a Instagram post or whatever else is hypercritical, right? I'm wondering about how you don't get caught up in that. How do you protect yourself from becoming hypercritical or critical or getting swept up in that?
I don't think we waste our time with it. Like, if I don't know you or know the reasons behind what you do, why would I not just give you the benefit of the doubt and move on with my life? Like, why am I so obsessed with what somebody I don't know is doing? I don't have the context. I don't have the details. I don't have all of the behind the scenes. And yet I'm going to form an opinion and waste my time tearing that down, and oftentimes tearing down the influence of somebody, or in our world, like church or ministries, tearing them down without all the information. Like, it's a tool of the enemy. There are Christian podcasts, bloggers, journalists that I think are going to be surprised that when they get to their day of eternity, because they spent their whole life tearing down the only thing that God is building.
Yeah.
They do it under the guise of accountability. But somebody should hold them accountable.
I think that's another layer to this discussion is...
Hold on. The reason that they can say whatever they want is because they actually have no influence, because they've never built anything. So they can say whatever they want because it doesn't matter, because they've never done anything of substance except tear other people down. And so at the end of the day, there's nothing that they've built. So they can say everything without thinking about anything. There's no repercussions because you haven't built anything.
Well, I think criticism, you mentioned before, they're doing this, or people are doing this under the guise of accountability. So I think accountability can sometimes be the umbrella that criticism kind of falls under. Yeah. So maybe separate those two things. Like what is true accountability? Like,
well, to have true accountability, you have to have a relationship.
Yeah.
And to be very clear, there are problems in the world and there are problems in the church. So appropriate accountability, tough conversations, transparency, authenticity are all things that should be fought for. But you can't judge somebody or criticize somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
Or you don't even know the facts. Like, so many pastors will get up and criticize another pastor for something they said on a platform, but they didn't listen to the whole message. Like, we're judging and criticizing clips. You didn't watch 40 minutes, and without context, everything's lost. And so I just think, I don't want to get on a soapbox with it. I just think there's a better use of a believer's time than just tearing down other believers.
Yeah.
The enemy's already doing that. Why are you working for him?
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I recently had a pastor friend bring up the fact that, if you hire a plumber and he comes over to the house, you don't tell him how to do his job.
Right.
You hire an attorney to take care of a legal battle. You don't tell him how to do their job. But all the time, you think you can tell the church, specifically in this context,
for sure,
how to do their job better.
Because we're quote unquote a customer service organization, right? Like, we're not in principle, but we're taking care of people.
Sure.
So they feel like they have a say. But I actually think in 2024, everybody has an opinion about everything. I mean, everybody's an expert on everything. So I actually a little bit disagree with what you just said, because you hire an attorney and then you tell the attorney what to do. Like, no, you're paying him $500 an hour. Why are you giving him advice? Do you go to the doctor and they tell you something? You're like, nah, I read on Google or WebMD that this isn't like the world has turned into like, we think we're an expert at everything. Yeah.
My son was a 2-week-old infant getting ready to go into open heart surgery. And I'll never forget, my sister-in-law was telling the general surgeon, who was about to operate, how to do his job. She's like, I don't know. I read on WebMD that you need to think about this. And he looked at her like, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
I got this.
We're in an election year. It's amazing how many foreign policy experts and economy experts with no finance or accounting degrees are going to come out of the woodwork. Like, this is what we should do. Really? Like, you have no background experience or study in this area.
Well, now that we're into this, I'm reminded why I'm off the grid with social media. Yeah, that's probably good.
Because on social media, you're surrounded by idiots.
Surrounded by a lot lot of them. Yeah. Well, I think this word accountability is maybe the next step with criticism for me. I feel it's just interesting because it's such a buzzword right now, especially in the context of church. And to your point, accountability is biblical and healthy and necessary, and it's best done through relationships. But there's this idol of accountability that's interesting to me. I'll call it. I feel like accountability is guardrails on a road, right?
Yes.
Like it's kind of setting the boundaries of danger on the other side of this if you cross it.
For sure.
But people are gonna people.
Yeah.
And when a car drives off a cliff and goes through a guardrail, I've never read a story that the guardrail's liable for the crash. It was the driver of the car, right?
For sure.
So there's this, I call it an idol of accountability, because there's this this lack of control that you're kind of releasing, trusting that the accountability process is going to work. And then when it doesn't work, you blame the lack of accountability rather than holding the person that made the stupid mistakes accountable. For sure. Make sense?
Well, it's because we can blame a system and not blame a person.
Yeah.
And so, like it was the road construction crew's fault. It was the guardrail was faulty. No, you're going 80 in a curve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so also accountability only works as much as you work it. Like at the end of the day, if I don't want to be held accountable, I can hide whatever I want to hide for at least for a time.
Yeah.
Like we could be best of friends. You could be as close to your spouse as you want. But if you're going to be unfaithful, if you're going to hide things, like you can't, even if you had all the accountability. So like you need to have it. But at the end of the day, we need to be responsible for our own actions.
Right. For sure. I'm curious. Is there a healthy way? You've said a lot about this is rooted in relationship, which is 100% accurate. Is there a way to criticize in a healthy way?
Well, criticism is never okay.
Okay. So distinguish between criticism.
Let's do criticism or correction.
Okay.
Criticism, I'm just tearing you down. I'm pointing out your worst. Correction out of relationship is I'm pointing out where you currently are, but there's always a path to redemption, grace, or growth. So as a friend, when I come and have a tough conversation with you, my goal was not to tear you down or to keep you where you are. My goal is to help you get here. That's why criticism doesn't work, because there's no relationship or there's no next steps.
Yeah.
Criticism leads to guilt and shame. That's why we know it's from the enemy, because you never get criticized and feel better. But correction doesn't feel good in the moment. But biblical correction would lead to a conviction, to repentance, and then a change. And so the words could be the same, but the goal is different. And I think oftentimes the difference is the context of relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I come and correct you on something, I know we're going to be friends and I'm going to walk you through the process of healing, restoration, growth. I'm not just taking a shot from the sidelines and be like, go deal with that.
Yeah. Well, you laid out something even at the beginning of the conversation with ESPN, news 24/7 news channels. Yeah. All they do is it's side by side, like side versus side, shouting back and forth at either side of it. Like you're surrounded by that, man. Surrounded by that. So there's this. I think that there is a real struggle to not get sucked into that and not become that.
I feel like if I could just give somebody advice, if you're criticizing somebody you don't know, you're dehumanizing them, because you're taking out the context of them as a human, as a mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, a son, or a daughter. And you're judging them and criticizing them. And it just shows, I mean, the Bible talks about, gossip and criticism like as an abomination from God. Like we're tearing down something that God created. Yeah. And I just don't understand why I'd ever tear anybody down. Like I make that mistake. I criticize. Yeah. I gossip. Yeah. We do it. Like we sitting on the back porch or on a drive. So it is a human tendency, but what good has ever come from it?
Right.
What productive has ever come from a conversation of me and you as friends when we've gotten mad at somebody and just torn, like we don't feel better. We didn't help them. Yeah. We didn't help ourselves.
No, all it does is get you all wound up. Yeah. And it's the enemy's goal to get you all wound up and lose sight of the bigger picture.
I do want to go back. You asked a question and we kind of got sidetracked. How do I deal with criticism is really easy. You take it. We can always learn from anything. So we have a principle in our organization and all the businesses that I'm a part of. There's always something true about it, even if it's 1%.
Yeah.
So we take and we're like, what can we grow? And then for me, I vent to a friend what I want to do with that criticism.
Yeah.
I get it out of my heart and out of my mind and out of my soul. And then I take it to God and try and move on.
Yeah.
Like it's going to produce an anger or a guilt or a shame or a heaviness. So let me get that out and then let me take it to God and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah. What about like safeguards with protecting yourself from it? So I heard you also mentioning like, hey, if I don't know you, it doesn't really affect me much. It's what God thinks about me. It's what my family thinks about me, what my wife or my spouse thinks about me.
Yeah.
And my closest friends outside of that, I really don't care. And that I hear that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's wired that way. I mean, for me, that's half the reason I'm limiting my exposure, so to speak, to public criticism. I don't want to get caught up in the comments about my post on Instagram. I don't have time. That's going to weigh on me for a couple weeks.
I think it weighs on everybody. I think that's why I have my routine of if something happens, I'm going to get it out of my soul, get it out of my mind, get it out of my heart, and then try and move on and remind myself that if you don't know me, you can't define me.
Yeah.
If you don't know my story, the situation, all the details, like at the end of the day, you don't even have enough information to even be a critic.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes what the problem is like, it's not even true. Like what you're saying is not even based off of the truth. It's based off an assumption.
Right. Or hearsay, because you heard it from somebody. I mean, I don't even know if that Owen Wilson meme is accurate from a math standpoint.
Right.
It's hilarious to talk about, but I don't.
What's that old one where it's like the meme was like, how do you know it's true? Because I read it on the internet. Like, you could just say whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also too, I heard this in some of the stuff we've walked through as a church and me personally, integrity wins in the long run.
Yeah.
So lies, gossip, criticism is loud in the moment. But if you will just stay around long enough, your consistency will prove those wrong. And so just keep showing up. Like if you're listening to this or watching this and you've been criticized or somebody's just keep doing the right thing to the best of your ability, keep showing up, and integrity wins in the long run. Lies are loud, truth wins out in the long run.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you said something too that I've been really challenged with a lot in the last couple of years is the goal of the enemy is to dehumanize people. And that's the culture we're in, where if it's us and them language that we get sucked into so quickly, that's they're an enemy.
Anytime you're taking humans and putting them in groups and then putting groups and making characters of those groups, you're wrong. And that's where a lot of like the Christian gossip and the church bashing from quote unquote Christians is happening. They're just characterizing. Well, if you're a small church, you're this. If you're a big church, you're this. If you've got this, then you're this. How is that possible?
Right.
We're all different.
Yeah.
In different cities, in different states, with different upbringings, with different theologies, with different doctrines, with different practices. How can we group thousands of things together and call it right or wrong?
Right.
And so it's just, and we do that with Republicans and Democrats and Americans and immigrants. Like when we start taking people out of their own human experience, putting them in groups, and then categorizing or characterizing those groups, like we're in a dangerous spot.
Yeah, it really speaks to the importance of conversations. And, well, I think the other thing too, just biblically, principally, is there's a big difference between knowledge and understanding.
Yeah.
Right? Knowledge is what I gain in my own efforts and in my own endeavors. Understanding often leads to grace because that's the gift of the Holy Spirit.
I would encourage people to ask more questions and state less facts. Yeah. Like I've learned so much with talking with people that are different than me and understanding how they got there, even from politics to very polarizing hot topic morality issues. I've asked questions like, how in the world can you believe that? Like, how could you be pro-choice?
Yeah.
And you talk to somebody, you understand how they got there. I'd still disagree with you, but how you got there made more sense to me.
Right.
Like I still fundamentally disagree. But after the conversation, I don't think you're an idiot. Right. I just think that your story and what you've been through arrived you at a place that I'll never arrive at. But but I respect the journey. I don't respect where you landed, but I respect the journey.
Yeah.
And so I think, knowledge is what we read and what we learn. Understanding is kind of what we experience through relationships. And I understand, man, I wouldn't have said it that way, but I understand why you did.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit back here and criticize. I'm going to say, man, that's tough that you're in that spot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think we can point to the Bible, and all throughout the New Testament, it talks about the Holy Spirit brings understanding to us. So if we're listening and we're leaning in and we're seeking it, that's where we're going to land, right?
For sure.
But no, I think maybe even earmarking this episode to listen to it again in November of 2024.
Yeah.
When we're back into an election season, just living in a state of grace and focused on keeping people.
I think if people could just stay in their calling, in their lane, and create in the areas that God's called them to create in, and quit getting outside of your area and tearing other people down, I think at least the church would be so much healthier.
Yeah.
Again, if you want an opinion, make an investment. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be accountability. There should be accountability from our boards. There should be accountability from our pastors. There should be accountability from our volunteers. There should be accountability from our members. But you have to have an investment into the relationship to have an opinion.
Right.
And so make this season where you have invested enough relationally to have a chance to correct and not criticize.
Yeah.
So what I don't want anybody to hear is that Christians or churches or leaders are above feedback. I'm just saying everybody's above criticism. Nobody should live a life being criticized. Everybody should have correction, but that comes through relationship. Relationship comes from investment.
Yeah.
So spend your time creating and investing so that you have a voice to make it better.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. We started with Owen Wilson. Let's end with Owen Wilson.
Favorite Owen Wilson movie?
Favorite Owen Wilson movie.
Well, it's not appropriate. You have to watch it on TV, but Wedding Crashers has to be up there.
Oh, yeah. That's not bad.
Or Behind Enemy Lines. Sleeper.
That's a throwback.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
I got another throwback, but go ahead.
Well, listen, you can't sleep on Marley and Me. That's a good family friendly.
What about a little cameo in Armageddon?
Well, that's his. I think those are his early years.
Yeah, he dies early.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
Come on,
it's
man.
It's 2000. If you haven't watched, it's 24 years. I think we're past the time. That's a spoiler.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You could go on a whole journey with Owen Wilson movies.
Man.
Starsky and Hutch.
Yes.
Ben Stiller.
Yeah. Zoolander
1 and 2.
Great.
Never saw 2.
Never saw 2.
Never saw 2.
What else is Owen Wilson in?
What's there's a family movie that Wonder. Wonder's a good one.
That's a good one.
He's a little more dramatic role.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson's a well-rounded actor.
A lot of times when you watch Owen Wilson, you just say, wow.
Yes. It's more wow. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks so much for the listen. We hope it was helpful. If nothing else, you've got a couple of Owen Wilson movies to watch this week.
Watch Wedding Crashers on TV.
On TBS or TNT.
Yeah.
Please don't find the Netflix version. Listen, thanks for the listen. If you liked it, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Subscribe, share, 5-star ratings.
Yeah, and especially this week, don't criticize.
No criticism.
Yeah, 5 stars only.
Only constructive feedback.
Yeah, constructive feedback.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next episode.
Man, thank you so much for watching or listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, share. We'd love to hear what you think about the podcast, and follow us on Say It Different Podcast. Not .com, just Say It Different Podcast. I'm old. Hopefully you got the point.